My name is Harper Quinn, and at 11 years old I learned that a full stomach was something other kids simply took for granted. That June, my parents announced they were flying to Europe for 5 weeks. Lisbon, Barcelona, the Amalfi Coast. They set two $12 bills and a plastic prepaid card on the kitchen counter, told me it was for emergencies, and wheeled their matching suitcases out the door without so much as a backward glance. I didn't know that card had never been loaded with a single dollar. I also didn't know that 35 days later, when they came home and threw a party to show off their vacation photos to 35 guests, 2 police officers would walk straight into the middle of it. But that's the ending. Let me tell you how it actually started, because the middle of this story is worse than you think, and I promise you the ending isn't what you're expecting either. Austin, Texas. The Ashford family lived in a 2-story house in a manicured cul-de-sac, the kind with matching mailboxes and a homeowners association that find you for the wrong shade of paint. My mother, Renee Ashford, sold real estate and ran a lifestyle page on Instagram with about 9,000 followers. Sunday brunches, weekend getaways, a perfectly staged Christmas tree every December. Blessed, she'd caption it. So grateful for this life. If you looked closely, though, you'd notice something I was almost never in those photos. My father, Craig Ashford, worked long hours as an accountant, came home around 7, ate in silence, and agreed with whatever my mother had already decided. He wasn't cruel. He just wasn't there, even when he was standing right in front of you. I'd learned to manage myself early, making my own breakfast since I was 8, walking myself to school, signing my own permission slips when nobody remembered to. In front of guests, my mother had a line she liked to use. "Harper's just the independent one," she'd say, laughing lightly. "She doesn't need much. Isn't that right, sweetheart?" She never waited for an answer. I always nodded, because if I didn't, she'd sigh like I'd ruined her whole afternoon. I thought that was just what being a kid felt like, existing quietly at the edges, trying to be good enough not to be a problem. I never once imagined they would actually leave me behind entirely. 2 weeks before the trip, my mother called me into the living room. Her laptop sat open on a flight booking site. My father stood by the window, staring outside, saying absolutely nothing. "Harper," she said in the same breezy tone she used to announce dinner plans, "your father and I need this trip, 5 weeks. Portugal, Spain, Italy, you're 11 now, old enough to hold down the fort." I stood completely frozen. "Who's staying with me?" "You are," she said, not even glancing up. "What's the big deal? It's not that long." "A whole month and a week. Harper." Her voice sharpened instantly. "Don't be dramatic. I've taught you everything you need to know." I looked at my father. He kept his back to me, still facing that window. "Could Grandma Vivian stay, or Aunt Colleen?" "Grandma's not up for it," my mother cut in. "And Colleen," she pressed her lips into a thin line, "you know we don't speak." I never understood exactly why my mother had frozen out her own sister for the past 4 years. I just knew Colleen hadn't set foot in our house since. My mother stood, pulled 2 $12 bills and a plastic card from her purse, and laid them on the counter like she was closing a business deal. $24 if you need snacks. This card is strictly for emergencies. House on fire, understand?" I nodded. "Good. We leave Monday. We'll be back in exactly 5 weeks." I picked up the money and the card and walked upstairs. I had absolutely no idea that card had never been activated. Monday morning, I watched them leave from the front step. My mother in a floral sundress, hair freshly styled, rolling a designer suitcase toward the waiting car. My father loaded the bags without a word. "Lock the door behind us," she said, not turning around. "Don't bother the neighbors. You're a big girl now." The car pulled away and disappeared around the corner. I stood on that step for a full 5 minutes, half expecting them to come back and tell me it had all been some kind of joke. They didn't come back. That first night, the house was so silent I could hear the refrigerator humming, the wall clock ticking, the wind pressing against the windows. I lay awake until nearly 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling. The next day I opened the fridge, half a carton of milk, 4 eggs, a loaf of bread 2 days past its date, a couple of half-used jars of sauce. Nothing that could honestly be called a meal. I counted my money, $24, 35 days, 68 cents a day if I stretched it. I tried the prepaid card online, ordering a pizza just to test it. Declined. I tried again. Declined. I called the number on the back of the card. "This card has not been activated. Please contact customer support." I looked at the 2 bills sitting on the counter. That was genuinely all I had, and my parents were somewhere over the Atlantic. By day 3, I was standing in the cereal aisle of the corner grocery store, calculating every cent like my life depended on it, Because, as it turned out, it kind of did. Ramen, 89 cents a pack. A loaf of white bread, $1.39. I bought 6 packs of noodles and a loaf of bread, got a couple of dollars back in change. The cashier glanced at me. "Shopping solo today, hun?" "My mom's waiting outside," I lied. Back home, I rationed everything, half a pack for breakfast, half a pack for dinner. By day 5, I called my mother. It rang 5 times before she picked up, music and laughter echoing behind her voice. "Mom, the card doesn't work, I don't have food." "Harper," she sighed, long and irritated. "You're being so dramatic, you have money, eat less. I'm at dinner, stop calling me." "But Mom," click, she hung up on me. I sat down on the kitchen floor with my back against the empty fridge and cried until I had nothing left. That night I opened her Instagram. A new post, my mother in front of a sunset in Lisbon, wine glass raised, captioned "Living my best life, no notes." 140 likes. Comments calling her gorgeous, telling her she deserved this. I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I grabbed the old tablet she'd handed down to me and hit record. "Today is day 5, I said, my voice shaking. Mom posted a photo from a wine bar. I had half a pack of ramen for dinner. I didn't know it yet, but someone out there was already starting to notice. Just not in the way I expected. On day 7, my neighbor knocked on the door. Walter Higgins, 68, widowed, lived alone 2 houses down with an old orange cat named Biscuit. He used to wave at me on my way to school, but we'd never actually spoken. I opened the door, trying my absolute best to look normal. "Hey there, kiddo," he said, studying my face carefully. "Haven't seen your folks' cars around in a few days. Everything all right?" "They're on a business trip, sir." "A business trip?" He raised an eyebrow. "Who's watching you then?" I wanted to lie, but I was too hungry and too tired to hold it together. My lips were cracked. My face was pale. I knew he could see straight through it. I'm fine," I said, my voice betraying every word of it. He was quiet a moment, then asked gently, "Have you eaten today, sweetheart?" I swallowed hard. "Yes, I have." "Come have dinner with me. I made way too much, hate to see it go to waste." I knew he was lying. A man living alone doesn't cook for 4, but I was far too hungry to say no. That evening, I sat at his kitchen table and ate a plate of chicken and rice like I'd never seen food before in my life. He just watched me quietly, with an expression I didn't understand yet. Afterward, he asked, "Where are your parents, really?" And I told him everything. Europe, 5 weeks, $24, the dead card. He was silent for a long time. "You want me calling someone, police, a relative?" "No," I nearly shouted. "Please don't. My mom said if I bother anyone, she'll..." I couldn't even finish the sentence, but he understood anyway. "All right," he said finally. "I won't call anybody yet, but I'm bringing you food every single day. And if you ever need to write anything down, you do it. Sometimes proof is the only thing that protects you." Walter kept that promise of silence for 10 more days, until silence simply wasn't an option anymore. Week 2, summer school started. My mother had signed me up months earlier, not because she cared whether I learned anything, but because she needed me somewhere so nobody would start asking why an 11-year-old was home alone all day. First morning. I showed up with wrinkled clothes because I didn't know how to work the washing machine, tangled hair because there was nobody to help me brush it, and dark circles because I still couldn't sleep. My teacher, Mrs. Delgado, watched me walk in and asked, "Harper, are you feeling okay?" "Yes, ma'am." She didn't push, but I could feel her watching me the rest of the period. By day 3 of school, I nearly fainted during math. The room started spinning, the chalkboard blurred, my hands gripped the desk, but my legs had nothing left. "Harper." I woke up on a cot in the nurse's office. "Did you eat breakfast this morning?" The nurse, Ms. Alvarez, asked gently. "Yes, I did. Half a pack of ramen 6 hours earlier." She put me on the scale, looked at the number, and her face changed. "You've lost 11 pounds in 2 weeks, she said quietly. "Where are your parents, Harper?" I said nothing. "Who's taking care of you?" I looked down at my own hands, thin, pale, not quite mine anymore. "Nobody." She and Mrs. Delgado exchanged a look I understood even then. Mrs. Delgado sat beside me, her voice gentle but firm. "You don't have to tell me everything right now, but I need you to know I'm not going to pretend I didn't see this." I didn't cry. I think I'd forgotten how by then. But for the first time in 2 weeks, I felt like somebody actually saw me standing there, that night my mother called. I was eating rice Walter had brought over when my phone lit up with an international number. "Harper," she snapped, "the school called me. What exactly did you tell them?" "I didn't." "Stop." Her voice cut me off completely. "I am in Positano having dinner with your father, and I get a call from your school about health concerns. Do you understand how embarrassing that is for me?" I swallowed a mouthful of rice that stuck painfully in my throat. Mom, I'm hungry. You are being dramatic again, she snapped. You have money, you have food in that fridge, you have everything, and you're still finding ways to bother me. The card doesn't work. Then don't use it. Emergencies only. House on fire only. Silence. Harper, listen very carefully. Her voice dropped, colder now. If you say one word to anyone, the school, the neighbors, anyone at all, I will put you in boarding school the second I land. You won't live at home. You won't see anyone you know. You understand me. Silence. Harper, do you understand? Yes. Good, don't call again. I'm trying to relax. Click. I sat there with my hands shaking, opened her Instagram, saw a fresh photo of her and my father toasting on some rooftop in Positano, captioned "Cheers to us." I grabbed the tablet and hit record. Mom just called, I said, my voice no longer shaking, just hollow. She said if I tell anyone anything, she's sending me to boarding school. She said I'm being dramatic. I paused and stared straight into the lens. I'm not being dramatic. I'm starving and she does not care. That night I decided something important. If nobody was going to believe me on my word alone, I was going to build proof so undeniable they'd have no choice. From day 18 onward, I filmed every single day like clockwork. I opened the fridge on camera, 2 eggs, half a loaf of bread, no milk left at all. I stepped on the bathroom scale and read the number out loud. I screenshotted her emails. Stop bothering me, I'm on vacation, and read them aloud too. I kept a written journal alongside it, dated, detailed. Day 19, 1 egg and half a pack of noodles. Mom posted a photo eating lobster in Positano, caption living the dream, I'm living a nightmare. Day 20, stomach ache all day, nothing left to eat. Walter brought a sandwich, I don't know how I'll ever repay him. Day 21, the school emailed my mother directly. She never responded. Walter watched me getting weaker by the day. I can't just keep quiet forever, he finally said one evening, worry all over his face. You promised, I reminded him. I know, but you are not okay and I'm going to call the school. I won't give them my name. I'll just tell them somebody needs to go check on you. I was too exhausted to argue. Okay, I whispered. Just don't say who you are. The next morning, Mrs. Delgado got an anonymous call, a concerned neighbor, a student named Harper Quinn who needed checking on. She looked down at the notes she'd already been keeping, dates, symptoms, everything she'd quietly observed for 2 weeks straight. She was a mandated reporter, and she knew she couldn't stay quiet a single day longer. If any part of this is hitting a little too close to home for you, drop a like and follow right now, because what happens in the next few minutes is the part that actually changes everything. On day 20, the school sent an email. We need to speak with your parents directly. If we cannot reach them within 48 hours, we are required by law to notify the authorities. The principal called my mother on the emergency international line. I wasn't there for it, but a woman named Denise, the person who would soon change absolutely everything, told me exactly what happened. Mrs. Ashford, this is Principal Rowe from Crestview Academy. We're concerned about Harper's health. She's showing clear signs of malnutrition. Oh my goodness, my mother said, laughing lightly, instantly switching into concerned mother mode. Harper's such an imaginative child. There's a sitter checking on her every day, a Mrs. Kowalski. I'll send her number right over. She never sent it. The principal waited 24 hours. Nobody to verify, no sitter, nothing. Meanwhile, the school nurse filed an official medical report. 11-year-old, 11 pounds lost in 3 weeks, signs of malnutrition, parents unreachable, investigation recommended. A mandatory report landed on the desk of Texas Child Protective Services. A case was opened. A caseworker was assigned. Her name was Denise Acaffer. That same night, my mother emailed me directly. No subject line, just one paragraph. Harper, I know the school called. If you say one more word, I will tell everyone you are a lying, attention-seeking child who needs psychiatric help. You'll be sent away and nobody will ever believe you. Understood? I read it 3 times. Then I hit record. Today is day 22, I said, calmer than I actually felt. Mom just emailed threatening to tell people I'm mentally unwell if I tell the truth. I read the entire email out loud on camera, word for word. This is proof, I said. I am not lying, and I am done staying quiet. Quick pause here, because I know some of you are thinking, why didn't Harper just call the police herself from day one? Remember, I was 11. I'd spent my whole life being taught that parents are always right, that causing trouble was shameful, that if I was just good enough, I'd finally be loved. It took 20 days of genuine hunger to understand that no amount of being good was ever going to change that. On day 22, Denise Ackhafer showed up at my door. I'd never met a caseworker before. I expected someone cold and official. She wasn't. Mid-40s, warm eyes, a simple blazer, a voice that didn't talk down to me. "Hi, Harper, I'm Denise from Child Protective Services. Can I come in?" My mother's voice echoed in my head, "Don't bother anyone, don't embarrass me," but I was so tired of being alone. "Okay," I said. She stepped inside, her eyes sweeping the dark living room, the pile of dishes I didn't know how to wash, the silence hanging in every corner. "Your parents are in Europe?" she asked softly. "Yes, ma'am, 12 more days until they're back." "Who's been taking care of you?" I looked at the floor. "Nobody." No shock on her face, no judgment, just a small notebook and a pen. "Can I see the kitchen?" She opened the fridge, nearly empty. She looked in the trash, ramen wrappers everywhere. She looked back at me, thin, pale, hollow around the eyes. "Harper," she said gently, "is there anything you want to show me?" I don't fully know why I trusted her. Maybe because she was the first adult who asked instead of assumed. I went upstairs and came back with the tablet. "I've been recording," I said. "Every day, in case nobody believed me." She pressed play on one clip, me standing in front of the empty fridge, reading the date, my voice shaking. When it ended, she looked at me. "You are very brave, Harper. These recordings matter." Then she asked something nobody had ever asked me before. "Do you want to be safe?" For the first time in my life, I said it out loud. "Yes." Denise called my mother the next day. I wasn't in the room, but she told me everything afterward. "Mrs. Ashford, this is Denise Ackhafer with Texas Child Protective Services. CPS." My mother's voice shifted instantly, warm, smooth, the perfect concerned parent. "Oh my goodness, is Harper okay? What happened?" "We've received reports of possible neglect." "Your daughter has been alone for over 3 weeks." No, there must be some misunderstanding," she laughed lightly. "Harper has a sitter, Mrs. Kowalski. Lovely woman, checks in on her daily. Could you provide her contact information?" A pause. "Of course, let me find it. I'll email it right over." She never did. Denise checked the neighborhood directory. No Mrs. Kowalski existed. Nobody had ever visited that house. Denise filed a subpoena request for the credit card statements, fully legal, through the proper channels. 3 days later, the bank sent the records over. She sat me down and showed me the printed page. "Harper," she said carefully, "your parents spent $52,840 in Europe this month. Hotels, restaurants, shopping." I stared at the number. "The card they gave you, it was never activated. Not one single transaction because it couldn't be used." I'd always known that, but seeing it printed, official, undeniable, was something else entirely. "They spent over $50,000 on themselves," Denise said quietly, "and left you with 24. I didn't cry. I thought I'd forgotten how, but something inside me cracked wide open. "What happens now?" I asked. She closed the folder. "Now we make sure you're safe, and when your parents come home, there will be consequences." My mother called me again the night after she spoke with Denise. I was staying at Walter's house by then, temporarily, safe and fed, though she had no idea. "Harper," her voice was ice. "What did you tell them? Do you understand what you've done? You are destroying this family, everything I've built. For what? Because you couldn't handle being alone for a few weeks." "I was starving, Mom." "You were fine," she shouted. "I gave you money, I gave you a card, I gave you everything, and this is how you repay me, calling the government on your own mother." "The card didn't work. You knew it didn't work." Silence. "Harper, listen to me." Her voice dropped, dangerous now. "When I get home, you are going to tell 3 days later," my mother posted on Facebook. "Coming home to my baby girl. Can't wait to throw a party and share our amazing trip with everyone." 35 guests RSVP'd, and I already knew that party was where everything would finally end. The day before my parents flew home, Denise sat across from me at Walter's kitchen table, folder in hand. "Harper, I want you to know exactly what's about to happen. We have more than enough evidence, your recordings, the school's medical reports, the bank statements, your mother's own emails." She paused. "When your parents land, there will be legal action. Child endangerment. It's a felony under Texas law." I swallowed hard. "Will they go to jail?" "That depends on a lot of things. But at minimum, they'll be arrested and processed. And Harper, you won't be going home with them, not right now." I should have felt something, relief, fear, anger. I just felt hollow. "When?" I asked. "Tomorrow, at the party. We know they'll be home, there'll be witnesses for safety, and—" She looked at me carefully. "Sometimes the truth needs to be seen by more than just us." That night, I couldn't sleep at all. My mother was somewhere over the ocean right now, probably already planning her outfit for the party, already drafting the caption in her head. She had absolutely no idea what was waiting for her on her own front porch. The day my parents came home, the Austin sky was completely clear. 35 guests were already on their way, and so was the truth. The party started at 5. From Walter's living room window, I watched cars pull up outside my own house one after another, neighbors, my mother's coworkers, women from her book club, people who double-tapped every single one of those Instagram photos. Through the front window, I could see balloons, a welcome home banner, a slideshow already looping on the television. My mother stood in the middle of the room in a new dress from Milan, working the crowd like she'd been born for it. "Renee, you look incredible. Tell us everything about the trip." I watched her hug guests, laugh, gesture toward the screen, the Colosseum, a Barcelona sunset, a yacht somewhere impossibly blue. Not one single photo of me anywhere in that slideshow. Someone asked about me. I couldn't hear the words, but I could read her lips. "Oh, she's just tired, resting upstairs. You know how kids are at this age." She had no idea I wasn't upstairs. She had no idea I wasn't even in the house. Then I saw it, an unmarked sedan pulling up at the corner. Denise stepped out of the passenger side. 2 uniformed officers climbed out of the car behind her. Walter put a steady hand on my shoulder. Inside my house, the slideshow ended. My mother raised a glass of champagne, ready to make her toast. The doorbell rang. She opened the door already smiling, expecting another guest. The smile froze solid. Denise stood on the porch holding a folder. Behind her stood Officer Reyes and Officer Holloway in full uniform. "Mrs. Ashford," Denise said, calm and completely professional. "I'm Denise Ackhafer with Child Protective Services. These are Officers Reyes and Holloway. We need to speak with you." My mother's face cycled through confusion, recognition, and fury in under 2 seconds before she landed on a tight, brittle smile. "I'm sorry, now really isn't a good time. I'm hosting. Ma'am, this concerns your daughter's safety." Behind her, the whole room had gone dead silent. 35 pairs of eyes turned toward the door. The slideshow of Europe kept looping silently on the screen behind them all. "That's absurd," my mother said, voice strained but still performing. "There's clearly been some misunderstanding. Harper is fine. She's upstairs right now." "Ma'am," Denise said, "Harper is not upstairs. She's been in protective custody for the last 4 days." My mother's smile cracked straight down the middle. "What?" "Your daughter was found malnourished and alone. She documented everything herself. We have video evidence, medical records, and financial statements obtained through legal subpoena." The room had gone completely, utterly still. 35 guests stood frozen, champagne glasses in hand, watching Renee Ashford, the woman who had just shown them her sunset photos from Positano, being read her rights. She spun toward her guests, desperation finally breaking through the performance. "This is a misunderstanding," she said, laughing too high, too sharp. "Harper's an imaginative child. She makes things up. There was a sitter." "Mrs. Ashford," Denise cut in, "we've verified there was no sitter, no Mrs. Kowalski. Nobody visited your daughter for 35 days. That's not. We also obtained your credit card statements through a legal subpoena." Denise opened the folder, reading calmly. "You spent $52,840 during this trip. 5-star hotels. Designer shopping. The supplementary card you left with your daughter was never activated. She had no way to use it. You left an 11-year-old alone for 35 days with $24 in cash." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. My father stood frozen by the television, white as paper, saying absolutely nothing. A coworker stepped toward him. "Craig, is this true?" He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Then a woman near the back stepped forward, Mrs. Castillo, my mother's oldest friend, invited because she lived 2 doors down. "I'm Harper's neighbor," she said, steady. "I've seen that child come to school hungry, exhausted, wearing the same clothes for days. What you're hearing isn't an exaggeration. It's exactly what happened." My mother turned on her, stunned. You did this." "No, Renee, you did this." The room went silent again. Then Officer Reyes stepped forward with handcuffs. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." My mother's legs actually buckled. No, wait, this can't." Denise looked at Officer Holloway and nodded once. "Play it." On the television, the slideshow vanished, replaced by a video, my face, my voice. "Today is day 15. The fridge has 1 egg and expired milk. I have $3 left. Mom is in Positano." My voice filled that entire living room. On screen, I stood in front of the same refrigerator every guest in that room had walked past to grab their champagne. Nearly empty, a single egg, milk long past its date. I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this, Recorded Me said, voice thin and exhausted. The camera panned to the bathroom scale. 78 pounds, down from 89 the day they'd left. Mom posted a photo today from a restaurant that costs $300 a plate. I ate half a pack of ramen. It was the last one. A woman in a blue dress covered her mouth in horror. The video changed day 18. Me reading my mother's email aloud. Stop being dramatic, Harper. You have everything you need. Don't call me again. My voice on the recording was completely hollow. She wrote this while I was dizzy from hunger. Another clip, day 22, the email threatening to call me mentally unwell. From Walter's window, I couldn't hear the audio, but I could read every face in that room. Horror, disgust, disbelief. My mother was screaming now. Turn it off. She's lying, Mrs. Ashford, Denise said, steady as ever. These videos were recorded by your daughter, date-stamped, and they match the medical records from her school exactly. This is evidence. My mother looked wildly around the room, her coworkers, her neighbors, her book club, and not one single person would meet her eyes. Even my father had stepped back from her. I watched my mother standing completely alone in a room full of people who had finally seen the truth. I knew the exact second it hit her. Her face moved through denial, then bargaining, then rage, before finally settling on something I'd genuinely never seen from her before. Fear. My father tried to speak. Renee, maybe we should. Shut up, she snapped, spinning on him, mascara already running. This is your fault you never paid attention to her. My fault? His voice cracked. This trip was your idea. You said she'd be fine. You said she was old enough. To what? The voice came from the back of the room, Mrs. Castillo again, her face hard now. To starve, Renee. To live on $24 for 5 weeks while you ate oysters in Positano. I've known you for 15 years. I thought I knew who you actually were. My mother's mouth opened and closed. No words came out. For the first time in her entire life, she had absolutely no performance left to give. Officer Reyes stepped forward. Ma'am, sir, you need to come with us now. She looked around one final time, searching for one single ally. 35 pairs of eyes looked back at her, and not one of them believed her anymore. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody saved her. They walked my parents out the front door in handcuffs. Not dragged, not screaming, just walked, quiet and final. My mother's face had gone completely blank, like she'd left her body somewhere between the living room and the porch. My father kept his head down the entire way. The guests parted silently to let them through. Nobody said goodbye. Outside, neighbors had already gathered on their porches. Word travels fast in a cul-de-sac. I watched from Walter's window as my mother paused for 1 second before getting into the back of the police car, looking up at our house, at the welcome home banner still fluttering in the doorway, at everything she was about to lose. Then the officer guided her head down and she disappeared into the back seat. I watched the taillights until they vanished around the corner back at the house. The party dissolved in minutes, guests leaving quietly, heads down, nobody wanting to be associated with what they'd just witnessed. Denise appeared on Walter's porch a little while later and knocked softly. Harper, how are you feeling? I thought about it for a long moment. I can breathe, I finally said. For the first time in over a month, I can actually breathe. That's a start, she said. Before I keep going, I know some of you are wondering if I regret any of it, if she's still my mother after all. The short answer is no. I don't regret telling the truth. I didn't destroy my family. My mother destroyed it long before I ever opened my mouth. I just stopped covering for her. If you're in something even close to this situation, wondering whether you're even allowed to speak up, you are. Hit like and follow, because what happens next changed absolutely everything for every single person in this story. The day after the arrest, my Aunt Colleen showed up at Walter's door, mid-30s, tired eyes, dressed in jeans and a plain sweater, nothing like my mother's carefully curated aesthetic. I'm looking for Harper, she said. I'm her aunt. I froze completely. The aunt my mother hadn't spoken to in 4 years. The moment she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. Oh, sweetheart. I'm so sorry I didn't come sooner. I didn't know it was this bad. I stood stiff at first, unused to being hugged, and then something broke and I hugged her back. How did you find out? I asked. Mrs. Delgado called me. She found my number in an old emergency contact file. Colleen pulled back to look at me. Your mom and I stopped speaking because I told her the truth once, that she was more obsessed with her image than with actually loving you. She didn't want to hear it, so she cut me off. She squeezed my hands. None of this is your fault, Harper, and now you have me. I'd already filed for temporary guardianship. She told me CPS had approved it that same morning. For the first time in weeks, I felt something that wasn't hunger, fear, or exhaustion. I felt hope. The legal process moved fast after that. My parents were charged with child endangerment under Texas Penal Code Section 22.041, a felony. They posted bail, but the conditions were strict. No contact with me whatsoever. Not a call, not a text, not even through a lawyer without CPS approval. The evidence was overwhelming. 22 date-stamped recordings, the school's medical report showing 11 pounds lost in 3 weeks, the bank statements showing over $52,000 spent while I lived on 24, and my mother's own emails in writing. Their lawyer tried to spin it as a misunderstanding, an oversight, an arrangement gone wrong. But you cannot argue with a timestamp. You cannot negotiate with a bank statement. The story hit local news within days. Couple spends over $50K on European vacation, leaves 11-year-old with $24. My mother's real estate brokerage let her go within the week. My father was placed on administrative leave. The Instagram account with 9,000 followers, full of blessed and grateful, quietly disappeared, but the screenshots had already spread everywhere. A week after the arrest, my mother called me through her lawyer's line. "Harper, if you take back what you said, if you tell them you exaggerated, we can fix this. I promise I'll change." I held the phone a long moment before I answered. "Mom, I have 22 videos, I have your emails, I have the bank statements CPS subpoenaed. I have my teacher, my nurse, my neighbor, and a caseworker who all saw exactly what you did. You had 5 weeks to change your mind. Every time I called, you told me I was being dramatic. You threatened to send me away. You spent $52,000 on yourself while I ate half a pack of ramen a day. Harper, I'm not finished." Something in me that had stayed silent for 11 years finally spoke. "You didn't forget to activate that card. You didn't forget to arrange somebody to check on me. You just didn't care. I wasn't part of the vacation. I wasn't part of the photos. I was never really part of this family to you." I heard her breath catch. "I don't hate you, Mom, I mean that. But I won't lie for you, and I won't speak to you again until I'm 18 and can decide that for myself." "Harper, please." "Goodbye, Mom." I hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear this time. From something that felt a lot like freedom. 6 months later, my parents took a plea deal rather than face trial. The evidence was too strong, public opinion too damning. 2 years probation, 200 hours of community service, and a permanent felony conviction on both their records. But the real consequence came from the judge, who permanently revoked their parental rights. "Parents have a sacred duty to protect their children," the judge said, according to Denise. "You chose a luxury vacation over your daughter's safety. This court cannot, in good conscience, ever return this child to your care." Colleen's guardianship became permanent that same day. My mother sobbed in that courtroom, but Denise told me it never felt like remorse. It felt like grief for her own reputation. After the hearing, Denise handed me an envelope. "Your mother wrote you a letter. You don't have to read it. Not now, not ever, if you don't want to." I put it in my desk drawer. It stayed there for 7 years. Life with Aunt Colleen looked nothing like the life I'd known. A small 2-bedroom apartment, mismatched plates, a couch that had seen better days, and it was the warmest place I had ever lived. "This is your room," she said on my first day. "Decorate it however you want. Your choice." Nobody had ever asked me what I wanted before. We ate dinner together every single night, nothing fancy, just pasta or grilled cheese, but she asked about my day and actually listened to the answer. "I'm not perfect," she told me once. "I'll make mistakes, but I promise you 2 things: I'll always be here. And I'll always listen." 3 weeks in, I found Harper's soccer tryouts, 3 p.m. written on the kitchen calendar in purple marker. My mother had never once written down a single one of my events. Something cracked open in my chest that day. It took a year to believe Colleen would stay. It took 2 years to stop checking the fridge every single morning out of habit. But slowly, I started to heal. 6 months after sentencing, I learned my grandmother had left a college trust in my name years earlier. One my parents had been managing, but never allowed to touch directly. As part of the court proceedings, that fund was moved entirely into a court-supervised trust neither of them could ever access again. I thought about the $52,000 they'd spent in 5 weeks while I rationed noodles, and I asked Colleen if they'd ever touched my money before. She hesitated, then said simply, "Let's just say the court reviewed everything. They will never have access to anything of yours again." They sold the house not long after legal fees, settlements, the whole collapse, and moved out of state. I didn't feel happy about it. I didn't feel sad either. It was just consequences. Actions have consequences even for parents, especially for parents. By 13, I had clear, non-negotiable boundaries. No direct contact, everything routed through Denise or a lawyer, no surprise visits, no calls. My therapist, Dr. Voss, helped me understand something important during one session. You're not punishing them, Harper. You're protecting yourself. There's a difference. But isn't there some rule that says I have to forgive her eventually? Forgiveness isn't something you owe anyone, she said. It's a choice you make for yourself if and when you're ever ready. And even then, forgiving someone doesn't mean you have to let them back into your life. I sat with that for a long time. Not yet, I finally said. That's okay, she said. You don't have to be. 7 years later, a plain envelope showed up in my mailbox, forwarded from an address I didn't recognize, my mother's handwriting. I was 18 by then, packing for college on a full scholarship, headed into a pre-law program, building a future entirely of my own making. I sat on my bed in Colleen's apartment, my room now, covered in posters and photos of us at soccer games, and opened both letters at once, the old one from 7 years earlier and this new one. The first one read in part, Harper, I know I was wrong. My own mother left me with relatives for months at a time when I was young. I thought that was just normal. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm in therapy now, trying to understand why I am the way I am. If you ever want to talk, I'll wait however long it takes. The second, more recent letter said she'd heard about my scholarship, that she was proud even though she had no right to be, that she was still in therapy, still trying, and that she wouldn't ask to see me, only wanted me to know she was sorry. Truly, I read them both twice. Colleen appeared in the doorway. You okay, kiddo? I don't know if I believe her, I said honestly. I don't know if she really changed. You don't have to decide that right now. I folded the letters back into their envelopes. I think I might be okay not knowing, at least for now. I didn't write back. Maybe someday I will, maybe I won't. But for the first time, that choice belongs entirely to me. The day I left for college, I stood on the quad and thought back through the whole path that had brought me there. The 11-year-old counting $24 in an empty kitchen, filming herself in front of a bare refrigerator with no idea if anyone would ever watch those videos. Denise asking if I wanted to be safe and realizing that was the first real choice anyone had ever given me. I'd been taught my whole life that speaking up was betrayal, that silence was loyalty, that good kids didn't cause trouble. It took starving alone in my own house to learn the truth. Silence doesn't protect you. It only protects the people hurting you. People ask me sometimes if I'd do anything differently, given the chance. The answer is always the same. No. I don't regret the videos, the reports, the day the police walked into my mother's perfect party in front of everyone she'd ever tried to impress. The only thing I regret is that I had to starve before I understood I deserved better in the first place. If you grew up invisible, if you were the one nobody had to worry about, if you learned to shrink yourself down to fit someone else's comfort, speaking up was never betrayal. Setting a boundary was never cruelty. You are allowed to protect yourself, even from the people who were supposed to protect you first. Family was never about blood. It's about who actually shows up. Colleen showed up. Walter showed up. My teacher and my caseworker showed up. My parents left me with $24 and a dead card, but I walked away with something they could never have given me anyway. The truth, my own boundaries, and a life that finally, completely belongs to me. If this story reached you, if you've ever felt invisible in your own home, I hope you know now you were always allowed to speak up. Like this video, subscribe and turn on notifications, because next time I'm telling you about a woman who spent 19 years being told her family didn't exist anymore, until the night they showed up asking to meet a grandson who was never actually born. You do not want to miss that one. See you in the next story. If this story reached you, if you've ever felt invisible in your own home, I hope you know now you were always allowed to speak up. Speaking up was never betrayal. Setting a boundary was never cruelty. You are allowed to protect yourself, even from the people who were supposed to protect you first. Family was never about blood. It's about who actually shows up. Colleen showed up. Walter showed up. My teacher and my caseworker showed up. My parents left me with $24 and a dead card, but I walked away with something they could never have given me anyway. The truth, my own boundaries, and a life that finally, completely belongs to me. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If any part of this felt familiar to you, like this video, subscribe and turn on notifications, because there are so many more stories like this one still to tell, and I don't want you to miss a single one. See you in the next story.